Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order, and the first item on our agenda is to approve minutes of our June 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We will have our investment report. Mr. Beatty.
Thank you, Commissioner Ely. All right. LGIP rate is remaining steady, and we did have one bid this last month, and awarded that at 1% on a CD, and so rates are kind of hanging pretty steady from the last couple of 3 months.
Move to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any further discussion for Mr. Beatty?
Is that basically where we have pretty much all our investments right now are in LGIP?
A great deal of them are in LGIP. You can see we have 69 there. But those numbers above on your report show what we're doing either in the CDARS or the CDs currently.
Okay.
Any further discussions or questions from Mr. Beatty? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Mr. Beatty also is requesting to amend our investment policy. Gentlemen, if you will turn to Section 9 in your notebooks. Okay. Mr. Beatty.
Thank you, ma'am. Currently, our investments will allow us to invest, Mr. Schaefer, up to 30% of those investable funds in what we call collateralized cash management accounts. And we have begun to bump toward the limit of those at this time of year, obviously when cash is at its lowest point between now and December. It's been at 30. I've requested that the only change that we make, that we allow up to 70% of our portfolio to be in those, which is exactly what we have for the collateralized certificates of deposit. These funds would be collateralized exactly the same as the certificates of deposits. The only difference is these funds allow us to be in and out with flexibility, where CDs are fixed terms, 90 days, 120 days, or a year. These funds are fluid. We can be in and out like we are at LGIP, but the bank has to collateralize it exactly as they do the certificates of deposit. So we take on absolutely no more risk than what we're doing with CDs. We just have flexibility. The reason that this is important is at this point in working with the banks, we have an opportunity by using these cash management accounts. If rates were to stay where they are today, it would be about $221,000 a year increased investment income for taking on no more risk than what we have now, and basically the same flexibility that we have with LGIP. So it would make a significant difference in our portfolio's income.
So moved.
Commissioner Bullen, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Discussion. Commissioner
Mayor,
Sandlin.
what do you think about it?
I think it's a wonderful idea. We need to do it. Take advantage of it.
I appreciate Mr. Beatty
Absolutely.
keeping an eye out.
Absolutely.
And searching, if you need to make one little change here and save up to a couple $100,000 or bring in that much money, then I'm for it 100%.
Any further discussion?
You say not any more challenged like we are now, but I mean, what are the hoops we have to jump through to go through this process?
There are not any. What we do is we require all the banks that we invest with to be a part of the state collateral pool. And so when we put in funds, they have to be marked as public funds, and they have to collateralize those. What I mean by that is they have to set collateral aside that in the amount of what we invest with them. So if an institution were to have trouble, to this point FDIC insurance has come in and covered everybody, but that money is set aside as collateral against what we have invested. So we would be able to get that money were there to be problems with the institution. And the same people the same entities that look at the LGIP are the same folks who monitor the investment pool. And so we even now, some new regulations, we report where we have this money so they can always balance to make sure the financial institutions are reporting the same balances we are, so that we know that what we have invested is covered. And that's the same with the CDs. So this would, actually they're collateralized exactly the same as the CDs, and so this would put those as a percentage of portfolio on the same level as what we currently have.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P, Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mr. Bailey, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we are ready for our fund condition reports, and we do have two reports. We will begin with the June report, and Mrs. Nolan, our finance director, will begin with the development tax.
On the development tax, we received $1,395,000 for the last fiscal year. Our sales tax for the schools ended up being 2.78% less than the prior year.
How did we budget?
0.5% ahead.
We're 0.5% ahead.
No, I'm talking about for last fiscal
We
year.
budgeted 0.5%.
We
Yeah,
budgeted a
but we came in 2.79.
behind,
So.
yes.
Yes, that's what I was clarifying.
But we made up in the other local revenues. We're good. Okay, I've given you the revenue review for the whole year, and then behind it is the 1 month. So you can just see about how much the revenue of the different funds were compared to the prior 5 years. What I'd like to take you is to this sheet. So I can kind of, this is the recap, so we don't have to keep flipping pages. And this is more a review on where we finished up at our last commission meeting. It starts with the statement of estimated operations. That first column, post-tax, well, which is now the adopted tax rate, but the estimated assigned and unassigned fund balances in the various funds. And then the one to the right is where we did close and what we are actually coming into the next fiscal year. So we were on target for most of them. The schools did come in almost $2 million higher than what we were estimating. But I remind you that we're using $6.3 million of fund balance for next year too in that fund. So that'll give them won't squeeze them as tight. The next block is the unspent appropriations of the various funds, and I focused on the two larger ones, the county general and the general purpose school. Flip to the back page and we'll have a little bit more detail. Above the block, general fund, below the block is the general purpose school. On top, the salary, wages, and benefits, we did not spend $2 million in the general fund.
Is that due from not hiring? Or is that
Well,
due from-
come to just the next block where the detail is. I've kind of tried to tell you some of those. Things you already know. The election commission turned in $124,000 where they didn't hold that election. They held the caucus instead of the primary, so there was a savings. Public safety, sheriff and jail, and the workhouse and juvenile, those were unfilled positions and some overtime, comp time not being bought down. So there were savings in those. And then the public health, we showed $605,000 not spent, but almost $500,000 of that all related to H1N1, the state grant portion of our budget that dealt with the health department. We didn't spend it. We didn't get any revenue for it either. So that was kind of a wash there. Going back to that top block, under contracted services, we did not spend $1.1 million, but over $500,000 dealt with grants. We budgeted the money as a grant expenditure along with the revenue. We didn't spend it, we won't get the grant revenue either. Under the supplies, materials, and utilities, $772,000, $165,000 that was utilities and gasoline that we did not spend was $342,000. Equipment, out of the $950 not spent, $850 related to grants that we carried this over into the next year. We didn't spend it, we didn't get the money either on the revenue portion. On the school board down.
Before you go on to that, back up there on the public safety, it's 900, almost $1 million out of the sheriff's department.
No, go to the right. Between the sheriff and jail,
Sheriff.
553
Okay,
relates
so
to
workhouse
them.
is 200. Okay.
Workhouse, between workhouse and juvenile detention was the balance. And a lot of that you can see is turnover too, because we budget for oppositions being filled all year.
All right.
So it's still $200,000 still in that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't spent.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
ultimately at the end our fund balance.
Right.
you know,
That's $900,000 that wasn't spent.
Right.
But when we go down to the public, of this $2,112,000, now, almost $500,000 we really didn't get, right? Because it was the H1N1.
Sure, yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
So it's kind of, you gotta look at that.
That's
Yeah,
kind of
we
what I
don't-
wanted to let you know.
We don't have it left to spend, yeah.
It's not there to spend. That's what I said. We didn't get the money for it either.
Yeah.
You know, there would have been an offset revenue.
It's still
to
close
get
to
those.
1.7 of what we did get.
Yeah, 1.5 to 6, yes.
Okay, then moving down to the schools, under their salary and wages, that's split pretty much between their instruction and support services, about half and half. Under their supplies, materials, and utilities, there's $2.3 million, but if you remember in their discussion, they said they would not adopt a textbook. And that was one way that they were going to save money for last year. And then also their utilities, like ours, came in less. They had savings of $983,000 for them. So that's the way we ended.
Part of that out of the new lights, or Jeff, that was installed, or is that just strictly the utility bills as in general?
Strictly utility bills. The other was built into the budget by this point.
Remember last year, the big gas
Right. And the electric rates went so high.
rate and then electric rate as well. So we just over budgeted that a little bit then, or something.
So we're going back up again now.
Yeah.
They've started, last 6 months, they've raised the, TVA's raised their rate.
So I'm just going to bring you back to this front page and talk about the county general. So we came in almost $400,000 more than I estimated. We'll be using that tonight in various and sundry purposes. So if I just, do you have any questions on this?
The education capital projects, how did it come in almost $1 million more? I mean, what didn't they do that they were proposing?
Sometimes, you know, you approved a set of projects, and they will come back if they didn't get them started or contracted right. They will be coming back asking that back out of fund balance to finish those projects.
So it's not like they managed to do the jobs more efficiently or something like that?
It would have been jobs that didn't get started, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, staying with the June report, move to cash balances, please.
That's all. Let me just read these in. We finished the year, our total cash balance, $150,755,000, with $140,169,000 being operating funds, $10,586,000 being borrowed funds. And then
That's the June report. Any questions or comments about that report? Because now we're going to move to July.
okay. July, first month on development tax, we received $79,500. Made one adjustment. And I remind you on this development tax, you know, we did have a fund this year. We don't have the development tax fund. Revenues are being split and recognized directly into the general fund and the debt service fund.
We won't have it broken down like this anymore.
You will always have this,
Okay.
so we can see in total what was received, but you won't be able to see it in our packet anymore. Okay, at the end of July, our cash balance was $140,491,000, with $129,831 being operating funds, $10,659,000 being borrowed funds. The place I want to direct your attention on this one is the 171-2003 City County Road projects that have $595,383. Just put that in. We'll be coming back to this later.
Memory for the next
Yes.
discussion.
That
Right.
number is going to change, right?
Well, we need
Not
more.
enough, right?
We need
Not
more.
enough.
Okay.
We only spent 200,000 in the last year on that? From July of '09 to July, where's there been money flow that went in and out?
We really haven't spent a lot on this one.
We've just been kind of waiting on everything to come in. I
It's at
guess.
Florence Road,
I
last
know,
bill,
I know.
that
Finalize
final
the change
bill.
orders and all of that.
Yeah.
And
Halls Hill
Halls
Pike.
Hill,
Yeah.
what little left on Halls Hill Pike that we paid out. Those are the only two road projects that really had activity.
I make a motion approved.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Bullen. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that motion carries. Gentlemen, if you will please locate your insurance report. Mrs. Stinson will join us. Good evening.
We're going to go through both June and July tonight, so you should have both of those reports in front of you. We'll start with June since that was the end of our fiscal year. The PEPM for medical and dental for June was $750.56 compared to prior year, which was $742.75. The average cost ended up at $686.70 compared to prior year, which was $680.85. That includes no fees or care here would represent a trend of about 1.7%. When you combine care here into the numbers, we end up at $718.92 compared to prior year $710.92. Overall, we had a good year with a medical trend of 2% in our plan. We ended up with all fees, medical expenses, and care here at $41,717,992. Prior year came in at $38,133,241 for a difference of $3.5 million from one year over the next. Still 2% though is well below the average for a medical trend rate, so we should be pleased with that.
And we had probably an increase in the number of participants who did not come in here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which would
and that's
count.
reflected in there,
Yes.
right. So we've
Yeah.
controlled our costs along the way as well. Is there any questions before we go through the OJI report? In June, if you refer to the second document, to give you the financial pieces for June. In June for the fiscal year, we ended up at $941,855. That represented 60.89% of prior year, which we ended at $1,546,848. We continue to believe that that is representative of the transition from workers' comp into an OJI program.
You know how many old cases that we left over now on workers' comp?
We have that statistic, I didn't bring it with me tonight, of open cases. We are seeing those continue to decline at a steady pace, which is what we had expected to see, and you can see that reflected on the chart.
You mind having that next meeting?
I will. I'll bring that to you next time. Okay. Are there any questions about June's report before we move on to July? July is a simple report, so we don't have a lot of comparison and trending to follow. The per employee per month for the month of July is $596.54 compared to $640.97 from prior year. When you combine the plan performance with the Care Here results, we come in at $620.30 versus $669.75 for prior year, and obviously we have a negative trend at this point. We see the office visits and things of that nature that pertains to Care Here remain somewhat steady year over year from what we expect to see. With the summer months, you typically see a drop off as people on vacation and things of that nature. Are there any questions about the medical portion before we go on to OJI? In July's OJI results, we were at $59,378.25. For prior year, we were at $67,622 for just a little bit under a 1% difference there. We have ramped up our safety efforts inside of our insurance department, try to be more proactive in the type of education and promotion of information that we're providing to try to offset, accidents that we have seen patterns on. I know that we did a heavy focus over the summer with slips, trips, and falls, and the safety team inside of our department did a very good job of being out, meeting with custodians, talking to various people about the safety hazards present in their work that they do. So I've been very pleased with what I've seen out of them.
To approve the two reports.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Stinson. Gentlemen, if you will please turn to Section 3 in your notebooks, we will begin with the general fund budget amendments. And our first budget amendment is from the Assessor of Property, Mr. Boner, and Mayor Burgess.
Okay. Well, when we did the budget for this year, Mr. Boner had requested some more money to put in a telephone system, and I didn't allow him to do that, didn't recommend that, so we didn't do it. But he's come back again now requesting that, and we think he has a valid reason for that. He has basically two systems over there that are not integrated. If a person happens to be in the mapping office and to get a phone call on the other line, they may have to go back to another office to receive it, etc. So what we want to do here is move $30,000 into the data processing equipment line item, and we'll have to take that out of unassigned fund balance. This will also, as he tells me, I believe we've already done this, but it's going to probably require only one person on that front desk out there for the most part. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, already.
So we're going to get some savings. I think he's already accomplishing that, even though we hadn't put the system in place. But it will greatly help their efficiency. And we will, I believe Lisa said that he turned back in. They didn't spend out of their budget even this year, even though it's been an extremely difficult year with all the reappraisal and whatever. They turned back, I believe, $100,000 this year. So they've been very, very efficient, done a great job, but a lot of extra work this year. So that's a request we'd like to recommend that you allow us.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Bullen, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Discussion.
The part about the front desk, is somebody retiring or going to another position?
Just moved them around.
Moved them around a little bit.
We have had one leave, but we're not replacing.
I got you.
Don't have an intercom system.
Well, we have, it's in with two different systems. It's pretty rough. I mean, you could have a conference going on somewhere, and then that, when they do make the intercom on, it's interrupting the meetings that we have going on.
Was that due to
have an old telephone system.
Was that due to because they started one part of the office and then finished out the rest of it, whatever went into the other part, and then so that's why you got two different systems?
That's the way I'm understanding it. But we're gonna have a lot less lines to also with the new phone system. I think we got about 15 different lines in there now, we won't have to have but maybe 8. We're hoping to cut down all the lines. Every appraiser's got a line. We don't need all of those lines.
How much cost savings will that be?
I didn't get that figured in. It's gonna be quite a bit over.
When people call, the front desk is busy, is it kicked back to the?
Yeah, we got 2 more people. It goes right to 2 other people. We don't
So you're
keep
not
people
gonna be run out of line
No
for
way,
everybody
sir.
calls?
No, sir. We're gonna have everybody covered. It'll have a rollover. With 2 other people that will be able to catch those lines that do other jobs.
I feel somewhat uneasy going to unassigned fund balance here.
First meeting.
The very first meeting, I mean, I would have.
You're getting a big one later.
I would have a whole lot rather seen this in the budget myself, you know.
Well, and true, he asked for it in the budget, and of course, during that time, we're not quite sure how we're gonna end up, which is one of the reasons why we said, well, not comfortable putting it in there, we'll see how we end.
That same argument could be made for a whole lot of other projects, so every department head could be up here next month and say, hey, we end up with more, then I want this copier and this vehicle and this what and this thing.
We're not gonna be easy to get that request recommended.
Like I say, I would never come up here unless I want something. And then I'll have to have it, because I won't be asking you for it.
They got one of the worst setups it is right now in his office.
That's true. We should approve the budget.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Oh,
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
That's the department I work in, so I'm staying.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay. Mr. Boner and Mayor Burgess, a request for approval of a resolution relative to the proration of tangible personal property due to the 2010 floods.
Okay, and a point of note here, it's really 2 resolutions, one for personal property and one for real property. They're separate. The state legislature, at the end of their session, due to this flood that occurred on May the 1st and 2nd, passed some legislation that would allow a proration of property taxes for those people that had substantial damage to their properties, which means more than 50%. And they have to be out of their displaced from occupying those residences by more than 30 days. And they have to have the rehab and what have you restored prior to September the 1st. But if they made an application, if we approve this, and they make an application prior to September the 1st of this year, then those property taxes, all personal tangible property taxes, would be prorated for that period of time that they were out of displaced from the use of that property. So that's what we have here before us, and if we, this has to be done this meeting at the commission if we're going to do this, or else the time will have already expired before this can be done. This only can be done if we put in place a resolution that's adopted by the Board of Commissioners by a 2/3 majority vote. And then this will allow these people to make these applications to the property assessor's office prior to September the 1st. I talked a little bit to the codes department. We don't think there's not even maybe much more than a handful of these people that might be eligible. So it's at most probably 10 to 12, and we don't really think it's that many. I don't know if you even had any calls about this.
We've only had about 5 to request, and then the dollars we were talking about is just in the very short hundreds.
Why would I like this common
500.
practice? I can see where this ought to be, somebody's house burns up, takes them a year to get back in the house, they'll have a break on their property tax while the house is under construction.
It's already does
and I
that.
think that
It
is,
already
isn't it?
does this,
Yeah.
but the state brought this in, and they passed this. Y'all seen this on the news, and the state has done got all this passed, but y'all have to
But we're
approve it.
basically doing that anyway, are we not?
Yes, we've always, even with the tornado, we didn't hear nothing on the tornadoes. We took care of everybody there.
We sort of did the right thing with the tornado people.
I make a motion to approve.
Excuse me just a minute, Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Sandlin had asked.
That's what I was doing, making a motion.
Oh, okay, so, okay. Okay, Commissioner Jernigan's motion, and
I'll second
you're
that.
seconding? Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a quick question. What is your definition there of tangible personal property? I mean, I know what your personal property would be, but what's the difference there?
The tangible is anything that they have that's not real. That could be for any kind of the commercial equipment, equipment, and restaurants, and anything inside the building that can be moved.
So you're paying personal property
It's
tax.
for business purpose,
Yeah.
basically.
Right, yes, for
Yeah.
business
Okay.
purposes.
Most of this is gonna be residential, but
Yes,
you still have to.
Right.
Well, that's why I was
Allow
asking,
for it,
because
yeah.
I
Well, there's
couldn't.
two separate resolutions, all that's the point I was making. We're not sure there's any commercial.
We have one, only one.
There's one, you
so
think?
far. Yes, only one.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bonus.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
From the county clerk,
Okay, I'll do this. Yeah, this is a request from the restricted monies that she receives for data processing, $2,500 to go to her data processing equipment this year to purchase a backup server and to upgrade the current computers.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner P., seconded by Commissioner Jernigan.
That's not new money.
Money restricted for this purpose.
Okay, I didn't know we had that.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Our next amendment is from Information Technology.
And actually, this is from me. It's, I had an error in my spreadsheet. I actually had a formula dropped, so it made my numbers wrong. So I need to increase the data processing personnel by 4,266 and the related benefits. And the total error was 5,110.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Bull. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. From the Sheriff's Department, Chief Deputy Nelson, and we have 5 amendments from you. And Regina, we will just go through each of those and take them as one vote. And committee members, stop us at any time if you want any discussion or questions about each one specifically.
Okay, the first one, we would like to move $18,000 in our special purpose fund, with $15,000 going into the 319 confidential account and $3,000 going into our 499 other supply and material account. And the second amendment is to increase our 399 account, which is our donated money. This is money we received from last year, just putting over into this year's budget, the $2,251.
And
So-
that's donations. That's the donations they get for their
Explorers.
Explorer Post.
We do this every year. You can't carry
Yes.
it. It has to roll over and
It
get it
carries
back.
over, and typically this is how we've handled those monies.
After the end of the budget.
After the end of the year, know exactly how much she finished with and roll it into next year.
Okay, our next budget amendment is to put $19,188 into our motor vehicle account. This is from the sale of the old cars that we had last year, with $18,000 coming out of general fund, which is just rolling over into this year, $950 from this year. And the next budget amendment is for our ARA JAG grant. The amount is
This is the one that has to do with the 2 temporary personnel people, the reentry programs, one at the jail and one at the workhouse. During the budget process, we had estimated the positions at a pay grade 5-1, but that's not what they're paying. They're paying exactly what they said that their budget, the grant would be. So this is a correction, again, in the budget. Also, in the revenue budget, we had not estimated revenue for this grant, so that's why you have a net increase to the unassigned fund balance of $67,450. This is the last year of this grant. So,
And, any questions?
Okay, well, I lost you there for a second.
Okay.
But there's another grant
Page.
also. There's another one, so, yeah.
It's the one with a lot of the entries on there. It's the first page.
This one is just, this one,
I was with
Is
you
it-
on the first one.
okay, and this one is the resolution, this is a correction.
Oh, okay.
Okay, these two
Okay.
are together.
Well, the second page on the first one that you submitted.
That's the one that went through public safety,
All right,
but we had to make some changes too.
I got all the way down here and changing this to 18,238, correct? Going into, this is the sale of the motor vehicles. Then on the back page of that, we have two. Is that part of it right there?
This is the same. This is the same.
That's what went to public safety.
But it's been revised.
It's been
The first
revised.
page corrects those items on there.
Okay, so there's not $9,660 coming out of general fund and 959,000 for the
Correct.
Right.
other contract. So this is no longer over here. This is correct.
Correct.
Gotcha. Now I'm with you. All right.
Okay, so you got the one on.
Now we're going to
three
this one.
Yes. and
ARA fund. Okay.
The ARA.
Gotcha.
And that's an increase that's recognized in the revenue, the grant revenue of $85,140.
And that's a carryover from last year.
Yeah, this is a carryover and correcting the personnel cost, which will have a net increase to fund balance of $67,450. Okay?
And what's your time frame on it again? We just got this.
This
right?
is the last year.
This
for
is last
grant.
year. This is just a
But-
carryover from
But you got a time frame to use it though.
this fiscal year.
This whole fiscal year.
This
okay.
whole fiscal year.
Gotcha.
Okay, and that is the grant for the temporary personnel. And don't be confused, there's another one now
Yeah,
for
I thought that
equipment.
one was a little more limited time frame or something, so, okay, I got you.
Just runs out.
Yeah, it was wrong. You don't use it.
Okay, and the next one is a JAG burn grant, but it's for equipment.
Again, this is,
Sorry, this is the shared grant that we have with the city of Murfreesboro and Smyrna and Laverne. And this is the remaining amount of money that we need to transfer in to finish spending out the grant money.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Key, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any further discussion relative to these five budget amendments from the Sheriff's Department? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes, thank you. Hey, gentlemen, the county fire department, we have a budget amendment.
and all this is during the initial budget, the telephone budget, the appropriations for the telephone was included in utilities, and to make this like all the other budgets, we separate all the telephone utility part away from utilities in its own line of communications, 3,000, and then, 4,000, and the 3,000 is the funds, the cost of funds, equipment.
And this was in the regular,
Yes, it's, all we're doing is just kind of fixing the budget. We're just moving it out of,
Bring in proper line items.
right, putting in proper,
No new money.
no new money.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan. I'm sorry, who gave the second? Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. We need to approve a FEMA fire grant originally awarded to Rutherford County Volunteer Fire Department, and there is a related budget amendment also. Now, this grant award was awarded to Rutherford Volunteer Fire Department. It's $100,000 to be spent over 4 years. We've
spoken with the administrator of the grant, and they realized that it now is going to be coming to Rutherford County. We've already made the changes to where the monies will flow to the county, and they'll accept our expenditures for this grant. And that's what this amendment for is, recognizing that revenue, $47,343, and allocating it to uniforms, $27,500, and other charges, $19,843. We're required to still recognize and spend according to the grant, and there were two things that the grant could be used for. One was for to provide uniforms, which include T-shirts, sweatshirts for the junior firefighters and members, along with Class A and Class B uniforms. The total for that portion of the grant is $55,000. And then $45,000 was awarded for a marketing campaign for newspaper advertisements, posters, banners, and from what I understand, that what they would like to do is to create a really nice video that could be played on Channel 19 to encourage people to volunteer as a volunteer fire department. So while it's kind of, the grant is for Rutherford volunteer, I mean, this supposedly will help all of our volunteers to promote.
We're just a conduit.
We're just a conduit for that original grant.
It was to them, and so they're moving it to Rutherford County.
Who actually applied for it?
Rutherford Volunteer.
Oh, okay.
And
They're into the second year of the grant, I believe, right?
This will be 10-11. If you, there's a next page after this. There's the amendment, and then this the second page is what the money can be spent for, and then the last page is how the monies will be spent.
Is this right here, 9-10, first year, 40,000? This is what remains?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we're moving
Second
that
year.
into next year's 27.
Okay. So moved.
Commissioner Sandlin, thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, and by virtue of what we're going with the county fire department, then can this uniform money be used for any fire department within the county?
No.
Well, it can be,
Can be used for the,
Well,
first of all, this is not turnout gear.
right.
This is T-shirts and.
Just T-shirts,
Oh.
and it's almost like marketing stuff too.
It's these are incentives that people get when they become volunteers, and et cetera.
Recruitment tool.
It's just some very fundamental equipment. It's not turnout gear by any means, okay?
okay, so they couldn't be used for like the two new setups that we're having there to come together?
You know, I think
Well,
they
can be used within that group, certainly, there's no
Yeah.
question about
Uh-huh,
that.
but,
And we can generate this marketing tool, or as a video or whatever, that will benefit all of the volunteers. If they, that will encourage people to volunteer to each of the other individual
Okay,
entities.
yeah, throughout the county.
We can have a
A lot of
motion
that's got to
second,
do
no?
with where you live, I mean, because your response time. So, when you're volunteering, you want to volunteer somewhere you're within reach of.
That's right. So we want to encourage them to volunteer where they're located geographically.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Our next amendment is the ARA Energy Efficiency Block Grant.
And this is the one that, again, it rolls into this year. A lot of these, we didn't do it at the estimate because we knew we would have to bring in and find out when we closed. So that's why you're getting all these ARA grants this time. The estimate, we didn't receive all the money that we should receive from last year. That's why you're seeing an increase to unassigned fund balance of $83,757. So this is the portion of this grant. There were two parts. One had to do with the upgrade and replacement of fluorescent lamps in 4 county office buildings, upgrading HVAC in 4 buildings, and replacing the lighting in 5 parking lots. And that totals $223,959. The other part was completed last year, and that was the purchase of the recycle containers. And I think we have 2 years to complete this one. It was a 3-year.
What's the
Grant.
recycle container?
Part of this grant was, to conserve energy, and some part of it was to encourage recycling, and so they purchased.
We put containers in every convenience center for every type of commodity, so, and we didn't have all of those containers available, so that helped us do that.
So that piece was done last year.
This isn't part of the school recycling piece.
No.
No.
This is, as the mayor said, in all the centers.
Did we up our budget to haul this stuff to recycling? I know we ran short last year because our recycling was so favorable.
We've not renewed the agreement. The person that was providing that service is not in business any longer, so we're doing it in-house with basically the same staff.
Saving money.
That works.
And we're gonna save a lot of dollars there, and I believe we're really gonna have a tremendous increase in the value of these materials that we're selling. I think that's our revenue's going to increase substantially.
Just a question, as long as you're talking so much about now there's a bin for colored recycled bottles and another one for clear recycle. Is that going to significantly increase what glass is worth?
No.
Because no. Okay.
Glass is not worth much, whether it's clear or otherwise, but it will help us, a little bit. There's no real value in this glass. I mean, we're doing that as an energy-saving service.
Doesn't decompose too well in the landfill.
Need to find some local glass blowers to work the deal with.
Okay.
Gentlemen, we need a motion. Commissioner
Second.
Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Pease?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, the next item deals with the THDA home grant. We did apply for that grant and did receive it in the amount of $300,000. And we have several things that we need to work through. First of all, we will need to approve a working agreement between the state of Tennessee and the Tennessee Housing Development Agency. And you will notice as you work through the documents, you will see this grant term is from July 1, 2010, ending June 30, 2013. And the next document is a resolution to adopt the home program policies and procedures. And you see that resolution followed by the home program policies and procedures. Then we will need to approve a contract with Greater Nashville Regional Council for personal and professional services. And finally, the related budget amendment to appropriate the proceeds of the home grant. Now, we can go back through each one of those if there are questions or comments. But those are the steps to this grant.
Yes, and this setup is just like we are set up before on the home grant, where GNRC administers the grant, the money comes to us, and then we write them a check. So it ends up flowing through us. And GNRC takes care of it, getting the contractors.
Who determines? Doesn't seem like 300,000 or 279,000 is going to go too far. Who determines what are the houses that need to be done?
Well,
Is that the administrative
notification process about all the availability of these funds? There'll have to be applications made. There'll have to be applications reviewed. There's a scoring mechanism based on your income, based on your needs, based on the number of people in your family. So it's a fairly sophisticated process, and GNRC will sort of
That's what their
administer that whole
administration
process.
is.
But
Okay.
you'll have to take applications. We'll have to have a very specific notification process so that everybody out there that might want to do this can apply. It's probably enough money here for 5, 6, or 7 substantial rehab improvement projects, and these have to be low-income, elderly people that have these needs.
And also GNRC takes care of the bidding process too.
If
The
someone-
bidding for the work to be done.
If someone is interested in applying for these projects, this grant money, what's the procedure for someone to apply?
Well, there will be a specific procedure. We will notify, I think right now, if we identify people that potentially have a need, if they would either call my office or Ms. Elam, so that we can start a list of these people so that we can get in touch with them when we do actually. This will take us probably, as tedious as
Several months.
Well, this-
it'll be
yeah.
probably December before we actually,
Well, this grant takes us all the way to 2013.
right, but we won't probably select applicants until sometime later this year or early next year, and then we've got until 2013 to actually finish the work, et cetera. But there was 500,000, I believe, that the county had before I got here, and we finished up the last 2 or 3 projects, even the first year or so I was here, so this, but if we have people, let's encourage them to call so we can at least start knowing who they are.
We post this on the website and Channel
There is
19?
these policies and procedures require a very sophisticated notification process, so
Okay.
we'll have to do a number of things to be sure the word is out there.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer.
So that includes A through D.
Everything.
But all 4 steps?
Yep.
Yes.
Shame it's not more money, because that's,
Yeah, we didn't get any money last year, so we were glad to get some this year.
It's been a couple of years we haven't
Yeah.
gotten
All
money,
right.
so.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mrs. Nolan will, oh, I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to make a comment. I wanted to thank Ms. Elam for pursuing this. I mean, it's not easy to get. There's a lot of people in competition for that, but I had a lot of my constituents ask me about that over the last couple of years, and I had to tell them it wasn't available, but it's good to hear at least we've got some amount, so I want to thank her for that.
Mrs. Nolan will explain this transfers out, and this is to provide additional funding to complete the Florence Road project that she alluded to earlier.
Probably 3 pages over is the bill from the City of Murfreesboro. This is the last bill on Florence Road, and our bill is $827,584. I have some money in the city county road projects, about $584,044. On top of this, there is an estimate of about $10,500 for engineering that I've got outstanding, 2 on the Halls Hill Pike part. So I don't have sufficient funds to pay this bill, which is the reason for the request of the $243,100 from the unassigned fund balance to transfers to other funds into the city county road project.
Why is it off $2,400,000 worth?
It's been in the paper, I know at least 2 times, the city talking about that the project just came in so much more. As far as the detail, why? I don't know the why.
Well, there were some utility relocations, et cetera, I think that came into play. A fairly substantial part of this, but I don't know how much of that in detail.
Well, I mean,
You think about it,
we went on to the projects, I mean, as far as saying we're in on the projects, but any change orders, $2,400,000 worth, give or take $1 or $2. I mean, was the mayor notified? Was anybody notified
Well, I
about the
mean-
change orders? I mean, we got change orders, but 2 million plus, I think it would kind of come through the committee process or something, say, hey, well, what's the deal?
well,
Then you have to say, well, what are we gonna do about it?
Yes.
Well, we're not gonna pay it, or that's y'all's issue, we can do it cheaper.
well, the resolution that you approved is that you committed to 50% of the cost.
They had built a bypass road around through the subdivision there to finish that, and that's all extra cost there too.
I mean.
They've had 2 or 3 bypasses, I'm through there all the time.
But the problem thing
pretty
is,
good
we're
mess.
committed to it, and we're gonna have to pay the bill. So I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Jernigan.
I'll second it, but I don't like it because I feel like we ought to take note from this in the future and make sure any change orders over a percentage or something we have to approve, because it was basically a blank check. And was our planning county engineers involved at all or anything?
No, the city
As
took
far
care
as
of all
when
this one.
I mean, as far as they decide to oversize this or move this, whatever, they're spending
You couldn't,
half our money.
you couldn't ask them every time they make a change. That's just like when we done the Halls Hill Pike, the county had run it and the city paid for half it.
That's why I said something over a certain percentage. I mean, I don't want to, every time something's a $3,000 change, something that's a $500,000 change, I wouldn't mind having a little
I
limit.
doubt they'll go in and
About
join
$2.5
project.
million.
Yeah. They add up,
$2.5 million change?
Yeah, well, it's came in 30% higher than budget, is what it was, That's pretty steep from what the original was. That's kind of, it's kind of hard to take when it seems like they did it on their own.
They'll be glad to let you handle them the next time, as much trouble as they had. That's what they said. They'd be glad to put their half of them, let you do it.
Well, that's what, they would have handled that one, and we did the Halls Hill one.
It's more complicated than you think it is.
Where did Halls Hill come in according to budget? Was it that much
But
of a
it's a
percentage?
whole lot simpler job, Will, to do.
I just said percentage.
It was over, I believe, but I don't think it was that much.
Well, both of them got hit hard when the oil prices went up because the asphalt costs went up. That's one thing, also Pike went up.
All the way from 2006.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
When it started out in 2006.
Yeah. The original contract was in 2006, and we're here at 2010.
But then, you look at the economy, it went south in that span of time too. But not saying it would counteract it, but
A
still.
lot of bids were coming in under.
I don't think we have any choice but to pay it. I know we don't have any choice but to pay it. I just say in the future,
Yeah.
safeguards in place, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, really?
You want to share?
The original resolution was approved.
Gentlemen, Ms. Short had to pull some resolutions, and she has a little additional information that might help you understand.
Please give it to these gentlemen.
It's just, the original resolutions were approved in 2003, and there were
Wow.
two different ones. There were two different resolutions and I think one of those increased the price over the other, but, yeah,
Well, gravel
2003.
price is probably twice what it was in 2003 right now.
Along with this, go back to the cover sheet to let you know what's outstanding, is the Joby Jackson project that, let me see if I can tell where you got, so we have a,
2 million, 2.3.
that's the estimate right now, 2.2. The resolution for the project was approved by the county commission on 2/17/05. Is when that one was approved. And as far as looks like they're estimating the construction to begin in February 2010. I'm not sure if they're expecting completion of that one by April of 2012. So that one is outstanding, that the commission has approved.
That's one of the ones that needs one of the worst is.
So that one's still looming a little bit on John Rice, and still have some outstanding bills on Halls Hill Pike.
What's the John Rice turn $50,000?
Well, when,
I need the turn lanes going into that.
yeah, we're supposed to improve. We signed an agreement with the city of Murfreesboro when you did that first phase that we would improve our half of that road there on John Rice Boulevard. We've already engineered that, designed that. The city asked us to wait because they want to do their half, so they haven't come along yet. We're going to do them both together. But that's our part of improving the
That's going to increase
curb and gutter on
our costs though, won't it? The longer we wait?
Sir?
My question is, the longer we wait, the more the cost will
Well,
increase, right?
in times past, that's been the case, but right now, with the economy, I'm not sure prices are escalating.
Well, we were notified of that.
Yeah,
we knew about that.
That's part of our agreement, and we knew about that, yes, sir.
Seems to me we were all here, if I'm looking at this right, and we're committed to this. We don't have any choice but to pay it. Let's get on with it.
We just gotta be careful, like the Joe B. Jackson, when we approved it in '05, and just now getting ready to bid it next year sometime, and
Could have changed.
prices change, and we here to say we're gonna spend X number of dollars, and 5 years later, it's maybe a whole different world.
We committed to it.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Do we need further discussion?
I say we don't continue writing blank checks.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
No.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. We have an ambulance service fund budget amendment.
This is 3,000 requested. It is not undesignated fund balance, but it's assigned fund balance.
Signed or
Assigned, it's assigned.
Assigned.
It is assigned to the ambulance, and the amount would, I don't know if you remember, but they closed at $1,477,000 is the amount that they have available. Anyway, it's money needed to convert the repeaters to a narrowband and to retune the voters.
That's
what it says.
They probably know what voters are present. That's something to do with their
You don't have
communication and
any public
dispatch.
safety.
And they are required to do
Yeah,
that.
I'm-
I don't know.
It says here you're required.
Well, they had and to POTUS, they had a PO that was issued last year, but they didn't ever do the work, so it, of course, it closed.
So it had to
fund
go into
balance.
fund balance.
And so they're just
And
asking
they're
for it
just asking
back.
for that money back again.
That's right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yeah.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
And I'd like to reemphasize what Lisa just said. The fund balance now is $1,000,004, almost $1,000,005.
Yeah.
We started with $400,000. The ambulance service did a remarkable job improving efficiency and staffing, et cetera. So they increased their fund balance by $1 million last year.
Can I ask something about the general funds? I think, yeah, but this one that came through earlier was showing 11.5 million, but it's really now 14.3.
Well, it was 14.3, but we adopted our budget out of balance, so it's reduced it from what we started with, you see what I'm saying? So that's reflecting what it would be after we posted the budget with revenues being less than appropriations. We had to use some of that money to fund the current year's budget.
Okay, gentlemen, please turn to Section 9 in your notebook. We need to approve a service agreement with Appertain Corporation for the removal and disposal of dead livestock.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner P. And that second was from Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah.
Or Commissioner Jernigan?
I will ask the mayor to go ahead and explain something, though. I mean, I don't feel like we have any choice, but it's probably better that you let them know, too, so.
Well, the previous vendor, supplier, provider has been doing this for years. Griffin Industries discontinued this service completely, so we, effective July the 2nd, so we were left without any option on picking up these large animals. So this is a temporary arrangement. It's only good for 6 months until we decide if we want to continue this or find a better way to do this or a less expensive way. So there's a new company out of Pulaski called Appertain, and they're picking up these animals in 8 counties, and we're one of the 8 counties. And we have a 6-month arrangement on this, and gives us a bit of time to see if we're going to continue this and make some improvements or change the process.
They get enough business, they might be able to lower their prices.
It's possible, yes.
Those of us that live in the rural areas, this is a necessity.
And must have.
Well, it's not just rural now. I mean, we got a lot
Deer.
of large deer in the municipalities that get hit too. There's gonna be some city people mighty upset. They get right.
What's the total cost?
For 6 months, the total cost to us is $23,752.
And what, the other was like 38,000 a year or
A
something
little over
like that.
30,000 a year is what it would for the previous provider.
But they are.
No, we have a motion in a second.
You for it?
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, Section 8 in your notebooks, we have a resolution approving the officials' bonds. And we need to do this now so that this will be effective as of September 1, 2010.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Bullen.
Bill names in there.
Yes. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
Trustees a valuable person.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Sumner Bolden and Mr. Baker to come to the table, and if you have anyone else that you need to bring to the table with you and introduce them, would you do so, gentlemen? We have two resolutions from the IDB board that they will present to us.
The first one is an identical resolution. It was passed by the IDB and brought to this committee and approved. On further consideration by council, it was determined that that should have come through the Health and Ed Board. So the resolution, project hadn't changed, the resolution hadn't changed. It's just coming to this committee through the Health and Ed Board rather than the IDB. The IDB has rescinded its approval of the resolution. The Health and Ed Board has approved it and forwarded it on to this committee. We will replow that project as much as you want to, but there is no change in it.
It doesn't change any of the dates or anything like that.
No.
So both of them have to go through Health and Ed and not through IDB, or just this?
No.
This one has to go through Health and Ed.
Okay.
You know, you give a lawyer long enough to review or something, he'll find something wrong with it, even though he wrote it.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin.
That's what he was reading, riding his bicycle going down the road.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. And your second one?
Yes, Tom Trent is here, that will give him more information if we need it on the second one, but the next one is IDB. On it, this is a new project. On it, the NHK company is proposing to build a facility to manufacture seats for the automotive industry on Joe B. Jackson Parkway. Looking at a $54 million project, requesting the issuance of taxable bonds at that amount if need be. This is 224 employees. Hourly employees will be in the $13 to $17 range. Salaries will be in the $40,000 range. They're all permanent employees. And this project fits very nicely into our ability to service the automotive industry in the area. Seats are something that are not well transportable for great distances and such. Basically, they load them on the trucks the way they're going to come straight off into the assembly line, and just there isn't any inventory to speak of kept at the plant. So this is a very good project, we think, that fits into the ability just in general to service the automotive industry in the area.
Jim, does this applicant meet, our minimum requirements?
Yes,
on all that?
Yes.
Well, that's something I've told people, of course, a lot of people are interested in jobs right now. And basically what we're doing is, the ratio is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 3 to 1. That basically if we spend $100,000, that they're gonna make $300,000 back into our economy.
If we abate $100,000 worth of taxes, then there will be an additional $300,000 in taxes collected.
Yeah, we don't actually spend anything.
Right.
It's just the abatement of money we're not getting, we wouldn't get if there was no abatement. Now, this $54 million is by no means taxpayer dollars. We're just a conduit to allow them to be able to go to market a little more.
Doesn't obligate the county in any way for the for the project, county the debt.
Excuse me, if you got a question.
Oh, yeah, is this a contingency, because, you know, it's already been laid out that they're coming, they're here, they bought the property, they're moving on and all that?
The general answer to that is yes. You know, this is something we've been working on primarily through Holly and Paul and Chamber. They've been working on a project for, good, 6 months?
6 or 7 months.
100 and kind of, so these things are kind of work in progress type thing, 100. They say this, we say that, and so we're down to this level now of we have proposed this tax abatement.
So they hadn't purchased the property then?
No.
Is it still the 5?
They are working on that, though.
I see. Is it still the 5-year rollout deal? 0 the first year ramping up,
This one
25 the second, I guess, or so?
This one starts at 0, goes to, and ramps up in 5 years.
Yeah, the equipment side, I believe, has a 10-year period.
Right, that's right. The equipment does have a 10-year ramp up for it. So it's all a matter, and you kind of go into these a little bit, each company, it fits into their plans to do something different. Some of them want to ramp up in the early part of their startup. Others are willing to wait through the startup period, such as that. When it all boils down to it, it's all put into a present worth study. So it's still got to be got to meet the in excess of 3-to-1 ratio on it anyway to cut it.
I hate to even ask these questions, but I mean, because we need the jobs, we need the, you know. But what's the salary or the hourly wage or whatever?
13 to
17 is the hourly wage. 40 and so in salary.
And they'll be at that 200 employee range a year or 2 years into it?
They think a year we'll ramp them up into, that's the last information.
They said they'll start hiring in a year, June of 11. And the ramp-up period can go up to 2015 depending on demand. So hard to know exactly, but that's the expectation.
Depends on the economy.
Yeah, and the 54 million would be the total investment when the building's fully utilized. So that bond issue, of course, is a conduit, as you said, non-recourse, and that's primarily structured to keep the lease from having ad valorem tax. And so that would be the maximum at the end of the day. Bottom line, though, is it's 224 pretty good jobs. The other thing that I think we should mention is they told us they've got about a 35% benefit load. So that's a very nice benefit package. We see a lot of them around the state where that's a fraction of that.
And they're all full-time employees.
And they're full-time employees.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner P., seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any further discussion?
The quick, what
Commissioner
is the
Schaefer?
actual payback? Is it 3-to-1 or is it?
335 or something like that.
You got 3 on this one, 3, something or another.
3.3 something.
To roll over. Okay.
Commissioner P.
I know someone here in the last 6 months or so had asked about some of these companies that we're giving abatements to and how they're performing. There's some counties that we've seen over that what brought that on that weren't meeting their obligations. I was wondering if there's some way that the IDB board could give us a report on the ones that we've given abatements to and how they're actually performing at this time.
We can give you that anytime. We monitor them on an annual basis. They have to submit this information, whatever information they proposed, then they have to submit this information to us, and where we see that they are meeting their expectations. If they don't, we're going to be back to you and tell them to pull their tax benefits.
Well, you hadn't come back, and I trust you with what you're doing, and the reason I even brought that up was because we had the taxpayers ask us about that. We brought it up for situations in other states
Well, we always,
When they did.
we've told all these companies to be conservative in what they promised. It's easier to be a little less, deliver a little less than on it if they get into something and say, oh, don't do that. So we've continually told them to be conservative in what they promise, make sure they deliver, because the information comes to Sumner and they annually look at it. We had a couple we had to kind of nudge a little bit to get the information from, but you know, they did, and I think it was just a kind of an accounting and administrative problem. They kind of, I think the folks in the administrative office didn't realize that they had this obligation, so Sumner had to write a couple of letters to some people and talk to them and such. But
Some people don't like giving up their personal information or their inside information.
Right.
What they're doing.
And we told them they didn't have to do that, but by the same token, we don't have to give them a tax abatement either, so.
That's once a year.
Right, well, I mean, kind of like that contract we just talked about.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah, aren't there about, right now, roughly 8 or so businesses that are on the IDB?
I think it's
scale?
9.
Because they do go off, you know, after 5 years, and then that's something you got to keep in mind. It doesn't go forever on that.
And that's, you know, we've tried to recruit long-term business that's going to be here, because our real benefits to the county come after the tax abatement. Not that we don't get, the county doesn't get a lot of time doing that period, but after the tax abatement period expires, then full taxes are in play, just like they would be if there had never been an abatement.
Well, when you bring that report to us, tell us also on each one of those companies how much time they have left on their abatements. And that'll give us a good idea where we're at on those.
We can do that. Be useful, yeah.
But we still have a lot of them that have been on not too long ago are still thriving businesses out there. Of course, General Mills, Pillsbury, Southern Container, Rockwood, I guess, right now.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Do we need further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there any other business that needs to come before the committee?
Yeah, I've got an item I'd like to,
Okay.
all right, I'd like to make a motion to approve $55,000 from development tax fund for fire station building on Midland Foster Road. And, if this is approved, the county mayor will be working with, that department there, work the contracts and stuff out with them.
Okay, you've heard Commissioner Jernigan's motion, a second by Commissioner Bullen. Discussion?
Lane,
Commissioner Schaefer?
where will the land come from? Is it being donated?
The Fosterville Midland Fire Department already, they have the land.
Land, okay.
And if you recall, that fire department is the one Lisa and I spent maybe a year on.
Oh,
And when all of that distress occurred, they lost that location they had 2 locations, so they lost one. So they're now want to put one back more toward the Midland area. They're over at Fosterville, but this will help them disperse and improve their ability to respond.
Are they on the other side of the train tracks?
No,
That's where they are right now,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
so if a train's in the way, you can't get to the fire.
That's correct.
Well, see, your ISO rating is affected by that if you don't have a station on either side
Yeah.
of those tracks. So
Yeah.
they'll be able to lower the rating by having the station there, and in turn, that'll lower insurance ratings for the citizens over in that area. So there will be a payback for the citizens on their insurances.
They got a good spot of land right there.
And the 55,000 is for what?
It's for the building and
Is it
furnishing out the building. They have purchased the land,
Convenience center.
and they will contribute that land toward the whole process, and we'll fold that in and probably give them a 99-year lease at $1 a year or something, and we'll probably own.
And the 55's coming from where?
From
From restricted for capital projects.
Okay.
Development
It used
tax,
to be
that roll.
development tax.
Yeah.
Which was development tax.
Yeah.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, we do not have a meeting scheduled for September. We will need to wait until the committees are arranged, so that date will be announced at a later time. Any other business that needs to come before our committee? Commissioner Sandlin?
I'd like to take the opportunity, Madam Chairman, to thank the Budget Committee for a good, hard-working budget, but to also say thank you to Commissioner Bullen, who's, this was his last budget meeting. Certainly appreciate all the dedication that you've had for 24 years on the County Commission. For me, for 20 years, being on different committees with each other and everything, and for us arguing a little bit and trying to use the tax dollars wisely, and then in a heated discussion where I'm about ready to blow my top, he comes up with some famous quote from Mark Twain or somebody, and lightens the mood on everybody. But dedicated citizen, dedicated county commissioner, learned a lot from you. Learned a lot of things not to do, but learned also things to do. But in all seriousness, though, a great commissioner, a great man, and certainly enjoyed working with you for 20 years.
I appreciate your remarks. I really do. Thank you very much.
Any other business? Thank you, gentlemen. We are adjourned.